All right, everyone, welcome to the Tonta's Demise Week 9 recap. Another good week in the books. A couple people inching closer to playoff contention. We muddled it a lot more towards the middle. And let's see, so after we get to the recap here, get a little bit looking into this week coming up, a lot of interesting things that could happen here with the matchups in determining the standings, because like I said, it's one, as it tends to be each year, I think, a big muddle in the middle there. And unfortunately for most of us, it looks like 4 of the 6 playoff spots are pretty much set, or at least claimed, with Josh, Brian, and most likely Detling and Justin, unless Detling and Justin go on a losing streak the rest of the season. They only really need, as I said, one more to get to the magic number 7. So I think it's safe to pencil them in as 2 playoff teams here. But then we have 7 other teams fighting for 2 spots here. So set your lineups. Every point counts. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of teams with similar records going down the stretch there at the end of the regular season here. So some of those playoff seedings might be, or just chance to make the playoffs might be determined by your point totals here. So again, good luck with your lineup choosing, and make sure you don't miss anybody or keep anybody out by accident, which we've had a couple situations with that here so far this season. So again, make sure you're on top of that, because I'm pretty sure, like I said, every point is going to count. So let's get into it. Told myself no before we get into it. Should I keep talking about Tom Petty a little bit more in the free falling video? You know, I just don't feel like it, getting back into it. And I'm just gonna let it go. We're not gonna talk about we're not gonna talk about the other mass shooting that we've had and things like that. I think one time was enough to get into that. And all those other things. I think it just, because all those things happened all within like a 1 to 2 day span there, it was a little bit overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people, just on top of all sorts of things that have gone on this year already. So for all of us, but I'll just keep it. We'll just talk football. How about that? Anyway, as we always do, we start with the defending champion, and that is Gags to Riches, trying to avoid loss number 7 and most likely playoff elimination, I guess we could say. And he manages to fight it off one more week at least, and he takes down friggin' Laser Sharks, Dub C Hooligans. Final score here was 180.55 to only 111.85. So for Gags to Riches, going up against, let's see, they were the teams that swapped receiver and quarterback earlier in the year. Breeze and Bryant for Gags. Winston and Evans for Kevin. And I am not exactly sure, keeping an eye on it, it's been a little bit tricky with who's made the most of that trade. Probably Gags, because I think Winston has had some injury problems, and also Kevin has been bouncing back and forth week to week between Winston and Prescott, depending on the matchups there. And of course, as you probably know now, Winston, his shoulder injury looks like it's going to actually keep him out for a little while. Plus, Mike Evans is suspended, I see, for this week coming up here. And he's actually been a pretty big disappointment most of the year. He only had 2 points this past week. Let's see. Taking a look at Mike Evans here. His game log goes 22, 13, 17, 9, 18, 21, 11, and 2 this past week. So actually, that's not too bad. He's been above, basically been at least giving you 10 points every week. So maybe not. It's not as bad as it seemed like, but he said his highest has only been. He's only broke 20 2 times there. So I think showed a lot of promise last year. I think a lot of people wanted him, and he was the number 3 or 4 overall pick this year, and been okay, but not nearly living up to the promise that he showed last year to come into this year. So so probably Gags wins that trade. Anyway, Gags to riches. As I said, Breeze and Bryant, 43.5 to Bryant 13.5. Your other receivers there, Shepard and Devontae Adams, 12 from each of those guys. Adrian Peterson looks like he's going to be getting a ton of carries now that Carson Palmer is done for the year. They're going to try and lean on that Arizona running game a little bit more. And Peterson, he went for over 150 yards this week. I'm not sure if I guess he must not have had a touchdown, but he did lose a fumble, I see there. He got you about, that would be about 15, 16 points. Marshawn Lynch scored 2 touchdowns, had 60 yards. Finally a good game from him this year. He's been a pretty big disappointment too, I think, overall. Travis Kelce, let's see. He's been pretty consistent, probably the best tight end in the league this year. Let's see. He had just over 20. You played Doug Martin in your flex, and he got you less than 1 point. Fortunately, it didn't matter because the rest of your team did pretty good. Zerline, your kicker, looks like he had 6 PATs and a couple field goals there because, let's see, the Rams, they went over 50 points this week. Yahoo says 16. I think it was a little bit more than that. And you picked up and played Kevin's old defense, the Arizona Cardinals, going against San Francisco this week. Didn't give up a lot of points, had a bunch of sacks, a couple turnovers. And Yahoo says 17. It was probably somewhere in the low to mid 20s there. So pretty good score. Said pretty good totals up and down for Gags to riches there. To get 180 is pretty good score. You're usually going to win with that. Feel pretty comfortable with it. Especially, going against friggin' Laser Sharks this week, who played Dak Prescott and got 50 points from him. But I'm seeing pretty much all single-digit totals the rest of the way down his lineup. Here we had Mike Evans, 2.5. Nelson Aguilar, 5.5. Tyler Lockett, 3. Orleans Darkwa, 7. TJ Yeldon, since I think was Fournette suspended by the team for the week or something. Looks like he only got you 2 points. Also then Zach Ertz was out with an injury, so you picked up Brent Selleck, who I didn't even know was still in the league. He got you 7 points. Your flex, Mark Ingram, 9 points. Your kicker, 5 points. And then your defense, I believe, which is your only defense now, is instead of Arizona, you are going with the Tennessee Titans. They actually did okay against Baltimore. Looks like they had a couple sacks, a couple turnovers. Yahoo says 14. It was probably right around 20, I want to say, if I remember correctly. So you got the 70 from the quarterback and the defense, but not much in between there. Said 2, 5, 3, 2, 7, 9 there. So all single-digit scores there. That's not going to do too good as you friggin' Laser Sharks barely managed to get over 100 points this week. And with that win from Gags to Riches, he moves up to 3-6, although he is still in 11th place, while friggin' Laser Sharks dropped to 3-6 and are actually just 1 place above Gags to Riches in 10th place. All right, let's just go right down the line with the rest of the matchups, as I tend to do. Of course, next up matchup came down to Monday night. It was Possum Magic versus the Skeletor Isotopes. Isotopes, just like Gags and Mighty Midgets, try to hold on, keep a glimmer of hope alive for their season, and not get that 7th loss, which virtually eliminates you from the playoffs. And the Isotopes, just like Gags, but unlike Mighty Midgets, were able to squeak this one out. Final score, 149.4 to 144.05. So only about a 5-point difference there that came down to Monday night, as Possum Magic was finished, and the Isotopes still had Marvin Jones, Aaron Jones, and the Detroit kicker, Matt Prater. And Marvin Jones nearly covered the deficit was about 38 points, I think, 38 or 39. And Marvin Jones nearly took care of that all by himself. Let's see, for the Isotopes, Derek Carr, just under 40. Marvin Jones, just under 30. Paul Richardson, 7. Larry Fitzgerald, 12. Aaron Jones, only 1.2. Todd Gurley, not in the flex this week. Had some bye week problems. So we went with 4 receivers. Let's see. Gurley had 2 touchdowns and 60 yards. So that's 666. A is 18 there. No Gronk, so went with Derby since New Gods Mad Titans scooped Vernon Davis out from us. He got only 2 points there. Tyreek Hill in the flex, only 2 catches, but one was that ridiculous play where I think it was the last play of the first half, where they basically just threw a pass down to him down the middle, and Cowboys were just playing deep prevent defense there, and Tyreek Hill is Zach Sankey is the Tyreek Hill of Turkey Bowl, I think, because he just stopped and zigged and zagged his way through around everybody else that's slower than him all the way to the end zone, which you'll see that 3 or 4 times every year if you play in or attend the Turkey Bowl. So yeah, Zach Sankey is the Tyreek Hill of the Turkey Bowl there. So actually, him getting into the end zone there was one of the difference makers in this matchup. Said it was only a 5-point difference there. Somebody tackles him, even at the 1-yard line, then this matchup goes the other way. But unfortunately for Possum Magic, that's not what happened. Let's see, Hill ended up with just over 15. Matt Prater, 11, about 11.5. And then he went with the Falcons defense this week, and they got about, I think actually Yahoo was correct, and the total was 13. Then Possum Magic, actually not some fairly good scores here, but a couple, I think he had some bye week issues with some receivers there and stuff. Let's see, he went with Russell Wilson, ended up being pretty good. He's been going back and forth between him and Alex Smith. Let's see, actually Russell Wilson was a couple points better this week than Smith. 48.5 for Wilson. Your receivers there, Jermaine Kearse, Sammy Watkins, and Corey Davis. Kearse just under 6. And I thought this was going to be the difference in the matchup here, because Sammy Watkins only caught 1 pass, but it was a 67-yard touchdown. So that ended up being, with the long touchdown bonus, a 16.7 point play. So Sammy Watkins really only made 1 play the whole game and got you almost 17 points. Better than most wide receivers in the league there, just from 1 play. Anyway, and you went with Corey Davis. Let's see, just under 5 points from him. Your running backs, as we know, Lamar Miller and Ezekiel Elliott. No McKinnon or the Vikings defense this week. They run by. Lamar Miller, only 5.5 points, and Zeke wasn't able to get 100. Get you a bonus there. That would have made this one even a lot closer than it ended up being. But he got you 15.3. Not too bad though. You went with Croft as your tight end from Cincinnati. Looks like just under 10. And you played, is it Wayne Gallman? I'm not even sure. Yeah. Wayne Gallman from the New York Giants in your flex spot. He only got you 2 points. Just taking a quick look at your bench there. So I said a lot of bye week problems there for Possum Magic this week. Said no McKinnon, no Chris Hogan, who's injured anyway, no Hunter Henry, no Minnesota defense there. So really, you would have been better off playing, is it Aldrick Robinson, a receiver from San Francisco, but it only would have been an increase of 1.5 points on your total there. Actually, I don't know if you haven't bothered to check to see if you would have flexed Lamar Miller. I see he had 3 receptions, which got looks like he had 3 catches for 34 yards. So we had to chop off 6.4 from your score there. It looks like Gallman did not have any receiving stats there. All he had was the rushing yards and the fumble lost. But it's easy to say now, you've got 3 running backs. You had McCoy, Miller, and Elliott. Which one of those should you flex? Who knows? Take each name, throw one against the wall, and see which one sticks as the one you put in your flex spot there. It could be any one of them. And so you didn't have McKinnon this week. He's probably going to be your flex guy most of the time. So, and I don't really think you flexed Miller at all this year. But that actually might have won you the matchup if you had flexed Lamar Miller. But easy to look at this now, look at those numbers, and tell you what you should have done. So, no, you can't be upset about that. It said you made a choice, and easily could have gone either way. Gallman could have actually done maybe something, maybe scored a touchdown, been a difference here. But it's always, I think it's more difficult to look at those close things in a close matchup and think, oh man, if I would have done just this one thing differently. Believe me, I've had a couple of those matchups this year where if I had done one thing differently, the outcome would have been different. So don't kick yourself about it. You went with what you thought, and it just you thought was your best lineup, and just didn't quite work out. So that's just the way it goes sometimes. Excuse me. Then you had Robbie Gould as your kicker. Looks like he had a field goal and a PAT, 5 points from him. And then Eagles defense, the Eagles put up 50 points too this week. They had, a couple turnovers, couple sacks, but they gave up some yards there in garbage time. Made a difference in this one probably because they got, I think they got a late touchdown, which probably jumped you up. Lost a couple points there from points allowed and your passing yards and things like that. So, yeah, that garbage time there lost you some points for Philadelphia's defense, too, so that always hurts. But a matchup like this, not much you can do. It's a good one. Came down to Monday night and wasn't really determined until probably just a couple minutes left in that game. So it was a good matchup. And Possum Magic, with this loss, he drops to 4-5. Like I said, we had a ton of 4-4 teams last year, or not last year, last week, all trying to avoid going under 500. Possum Magic not able to do it, although he is in 8th place, so he might be still. So you're outside the playoffs right now, looking in, but still in a decent spot there. While the Isotopes, they move up to 3-6, and they are in 9th place. So they are right above Friggin' Laser Sharks and Gags to Riches there. Next matchup. A battle, a weak battle of not really what would be the opposite of a battle royale? I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, FC Bohoric, a New Gods Mad Titans. I think Justin said neither team deserved to win this matchup, but Justin got it anyway. Win is a win, and somebody has to get it. And it was Justin this week, as he was said New Gods Mad Titans was trying to avoid, just like Puffs and Magic, from falling under 500 here, and he was not able to do it either. FC gets the win, 132.85 to 101.25. So another team just barely over 100 this week. All right, FC Bohoric. I think you were knocked out of the knockout pool this week, though, even though you got the victory here. Let's see. You had Matt Ryan. Actually, a better game from him this week than most weeks before. We were usually penciling him in for about 36, 38 points. He got you 48 this week, so pretty good there. AJ Green made one catch for 6 yards and then got into a fist fight and not kicked out of the game, so only 1.5. Alshon Jeffrey, 2 touchdowns. Let's see, 26.5 points from him. And you picked up and plugged in, I'm trying to think of what his first name is. Curtis Samuel, a wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, hoping that maybe he would be the guy that steps up to fill in for the loss of Kelvin Benjamin, traded to Buffalo there. Looks like he had 3 catches for 23 yards, so only 5.5 points. Your running backs, Collins from Baltimore and LeGarrette Blount. Looks like Collins just over 4 and LeGarrette Blount just under 4. Tight end Cameron Brate, he only got you 1 catch for 9 yards, so AJ Green and Cameron Brate only 2 catches combined there. That always hurts, but you said, like I said at the top, every point counts, but at this point of the year, every win counts, perhaps even more importantly here. Then the flex, of course, Kareem Hunt. It's actually a pretty disappointing game from him, only 10 points. Hauschka, only 3 PATs, 3 points there. And then the Rams defense against the New York Giants. Looks like a couple turnovers, didn't give up a whole lot of points or yards. Yahoo says 20. It was probably closer to 30, I want to say. Something like maybe low 30s. So pretty good scores there from Matt Ryan, Alshon Jeffrey, and the Rams defense, enough to carry you to victory. Despite those settled, pretty much everything else was single-digit scores there. For New Gods Mad Titans, looks like pretty much the same situation. Quarterback, defense, and looks like Ted Ginn maybe. Wentz, he was about 42 points. Your receivers, Crabtree, Ginn, and every time I say Ted Ginn's name, I keep saying Ginn. So if you're wondering, like, why does he keep pausing every time before he says Ted Ginn? Because he wants to say Ginn. Ted Ginn, whatever. He got you 16 points. And Emmanuel Sanders tried to come back from his ankle injury. He only had 1 catch for 30. I think didn't take too long for the Philadelphia Eagles to be blowing out the Broncos in that game, so I think he sat it out the rest of that. So he only got you that 1 catch. Said Broncos were getting blown out, so C.J. Anderson was a non-factor. He only got you 1.5. You played the other running back here was Washington from the Raiders. He only got you 1.5 also. Jason Witten got you 1.5 in the tight end spot. Vernon Davis, so in the flex there, you picked him up, played him. He actually did pretty good, just over 13. Said no, you had some bye week issues this week. Obviously no Le'Veon Bell or Melvin Gordon or Juju Smith-Schuster or the Steelers kicker there. So And you plugged and played, looks like Blair Walsh from Seattle, and he actually got you -3 because he missed all 3 field goal attempts that he had, and doesn't look like they kicked any extra points in this game. So they lost 14. They had 17-14, but somehow he didn't kick any extra points here. So -3 for your kicker. I'm gonna have to write that down here on my sheet. Seattle, Blair Walsh. Because that's probably something. That's probably a Tonto's demise record, I would imagine, for futility from a kicker, much like our defenses getting -3, which we'll get. We actually had another one this week, which we'll get to. But I think it's safe to assume that Blair Walsh getting -3 is probably the lowest kicker score that we've ever had. If it's not, whoever scored less than that should be very embarrassed. And then you had the Houston Texans defense. They actually did okay despite the loss. They scored a touchdown, had a couple turnovers. So Yahoo says 18. I think it was right around there because I know they gave up a lot of yards. So that touchdown really saved the day there for you. Maybe it was 15, right around whatever Yahoo said. But anyway, just like FC Bahorik, you really only got points from a couple spots there. Said Wentz in your defense. Said Ginn got 16, but a lot of single-digit points there. Said 7, 4, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So when you have three players combined for 4.5 points, that's not going to get you a win. And if you add the kicker there, you have, let's see, 4. So you had 4 players combined for 1 point. Ugh, that is absolutely brutal. And which is why you barely broke the 100-point barrier this week. New Gods, Mad Titans. FC Bahorik, like I mentioned before in the opening, he moves 1 inch closer to a playoff spot he's now 6-3. He is in 3rd place, just trying to get to 7 here, maybe a little bit more for him in these few next coming weeks. But sitting in a pretty good position there. And then you've got New Gods, Mad Titans. He drops to 4-5, but he is still in a playoff spot as of right now in 6th place. Next we have 1st place, Shawshank Athletics going against the Bad Luck Bears. And it was bad luck for the Bears this week as Shawshank squeaks this one out despite no Tom Brady, despite starting Kelvin Benjamin, who did not play. Let's see if you had any other bye week problems there. Not really. Let's see. So you won this one by about 8 points there. Final score, Shawshank 162.65 and Bad Luck Bears 154.25. So pretty good scores for both of you, but just not quite enough there for Bad Luck Bears. Shawshank said no Tom Brady, so he went with Blake Bortles, who actually did pretty good, got you 43. Said Kelvin Benjamin was one of your receivers. He got 0 because you left him in. But it was more than compensated for by your other 2 guys, DeAndre Hopkins and Robert Woods, who I think he might have been a bye-week plug-and-play. Maybe not, because you have no other. Tom Brady was your only player on a bye this week, so maybe Robert Woods is going to be an every-week play for you. But they just embarrassed the New York Giants there. He only had a couple catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns there for Woods. He got you 23 points, and Hopkins got you 21. So you got over 43 points from just those 2 guys, which balances out the 0 from Kelvin Benjamin there. You got to feel lucky. So you got to feel good about that, but a little bit more lucky than anything else there. Your running backs, Ajayi and DeMarco Murray. Ajayi on his new team, the Eagles, he got 77 yards and a touchdown, so 13.7. And DeMarco Murray, looks like he's nursing an injury there. He only got you 2 points. Tight end, Austin Hooper. You picked him up, scraps from FC Bohoric. 6.5 points there. Chris Thompson in your flex, only 7. Your kicker was Butker from Kansas City. Looks like 1 field goal and 2 PATs, so a little bit over 5 points. But then the biggest difference here was again, probably the best pick of the draft. You rolled the dice on the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I think they were definitely questionable and unproven, but they seem to be showing they're showing some glimpses of huge potential this year. And I think Jacksonville, they were saying that about Jacksonville last year, both their offense and their defense. But this year they've lived up to the hype and then some. I'm not sure exactly what round you drafted Jacksonville's defense in, but I think it was a lot later than most people drafted their defenses. And they have come through in huge ways several times this year. And I know some people were chatting, saw some chatter on the line app about the differences between Yahoo's point totals and for defense and the actual total here. But that's because it all came from those points from yardage given up, which was really low for the Bengals there. I think Jacksonville, Yahoo says 14, but the actual total was 41. So Jacksonville's been doing really well. So they did score a touchdown. I think it was a kick return touchdown. And I think Cincinnati only had like 8 first downs. Their yardage was really low. I think they only had like 25 yards rushing. So there's 9, so it's 6 points. 8 is probably one of the lowest first down totals all year. To see single digit first down totals only happens a couple of times. I can tell you from going through the totals every week. Most of the time you don't get any points for first downs. I think I talked about this sometime within the last couple of week or two, that it's really difficult to get any points for first downs because 15 is a pretty low number that most teams get over. Sometimes before halftime. So it's not a single-digit score like that only happens probably less than 5 times a year, and this was one of those times there. So you got a lot of points. Said 9 from the rushing stats. I forget what their passing total was, but it was probably another 6 points. So said Yahoo says 14. You got to flip that around to 41, which is what Jacksonville's defense scored here, and that was probably the deciding factor in this matchup, those 41 points from Jacksonville, because this was said, bad luck Bears, you did pretty good. I see a lot of double-digit scores for most of your regular players here, but just wasn't quite enough. Let's see, your quarterback was Jared Goff. He actually did better than Bortles. He got you 48.5. Julio Jones, who I think he dropped a touch. I want to say people are hearing chatter too about him dropping a touchdown pass, maybe at the end of that game, that would have won the game there. I'm not sure what the yardage would have been on that touchdown pass, but you figure 6 for the touchdown, 1 for the catch, that's 7, and plus the yardage there. That said you only lost by 8. That might have changed the outcome of here if Julio Jones catches that pass, which is unusual for him to drop a touchdown pass there. But he still scored you almost 18. Will Fuller, the gravy train comes to an end here with Tom Savage back at quarterback. No Deshaun Watson throwing bombs down the field to Fuller. Hope you enjoyed that while it lasted. It got definitely made an influence on our matchup. Let's see. Fuller, 5, just over 5. Golden Tate, you're hoping for something from him. He was actually on Monday night. I think he was the only player in this matchup on Monday night, and you had about a so it was about a 27, 28 point difference here, and Golden Tate, he actually made it pretty close there. He had about 18 and a half points. You would have maybe liked to see him get a touchdown somewhere in there. Uh, Maybe would have snuck this one out for you. Excuse me. Then your running backs, you went with Devontae Freeman and Frank Gore. Freeman looks like 4.5, and Gore just over 5. Your tight end, Jimmy Graham, 11 points. And the flex, you went with Deshaun Jackson, Mr. Boom or Bust, Deshaun Jackson, 5.5 points from him. So bust this week. Looks like Elliott, the kicker from the Eagles, maybe he's cooled off a little bit. Because the Eagles scored nothing but touchdowns this week. I see he had 6 PATs. He had 1 field goal, and he also looks like he missed a PAT. So he got you about 9 points there. And then some difference here too was Seattle defense ended up losing that game. They were winning with a couple minutes, probably only 2 minutes. I think it might have been under 2 minutes left. They got a touchdown to Doug Baldwin there, took the lead, but then Kirk Cousins took the Redskins back down the field, threw a bomb to Dotson that he made a diving catch on. And if you ever, it was funny to watch that play if you saw it, because he dove for the ball and caught it at like the 10-yard line, but he dove, so he hit the ground and he was moving forward so fast that he basically slid almost to the goal line, rolled himself over, and the defender from the Seahawks, I think it was a rookie cornerback, never touched him. So as Dotson was rolling over and getting up, another Seattle guy came over and tapped him just like a fraction of a second before Dotson actually rolled the ball over the goal line. So he was down at the 1.5 yard line, and the Redskins were able to punch that one in for a touchdown and win the game there. So that changed the point total, and you lost 3 points for the loss there. So that touchdown there might have changed the matchup here too for you. So a lot of things, you lived up to the name this week, let's just say, the Bad Luck Bears. As said, a couple things could have gone differently for you, but they did not. So, and Shawshank Athletics, he continues to roll along. He's now 8-1 in first place. Bad Luck Bears. Did all of these 4-4 teams lose this week? He was another one. He's 4-5 now, but he is in 5th place. So you are under 500, but you are in 5th place. So who knows what's going to happen there? You can't feel too bad right now about being 4-5. So because you and pretty much everybody else are in that same almost everybody else in that same spot there with your records there. But anyway, I want to say Shawshank Athletics. He's 8-1 now, and I believe last year was one of the few years that nobody had double-digit anything, wins or losses. And the best record, as far as I can tell from the records, is 11-2. So no one's ever gone 12-1. So we'll see if Shawshank Athletics can break that record. We'll see. Not if these Skeletor isotopes have anything to say about it this week. So, all right. Next up, we have. Holy crap! I'm at 40 minutes already. Mighty Midgets versus Space Antelope. And I already kind of let the cat out of the bag on this one in terms of who won here. Space Antelope takes it 168.45 to 150.65. And the Mighty Midgets, again, are the first ones to reach that the magic number of 7, but not in the good way. They dropped their 7th game of the year. You're now 2-7 and in 12th place. And those said, you'll have to win every week for the rest of the season just to make it to 6-7 and have. I'm gonna give you like a 0.5% chance of making the playoffs here. So you're basically playing for next year, or spoilers. Try to spoil some teams here, which you could definitely do because we have so many teams here all bunched together trying to fight for those last couple spots, like I said. Anyway, I'm just very. I know this is suddenly off topic, but I'm very glad that during the recap here, I haven't started to constantly sniffle every 10 to 20 seconds because, so let me tell you, all night at work tonight, Justin Bohuric sniffled every 10 to 20 seconds. He was, and he's like, I'm sick, I'm sorry. I know it's no. And I said, if I go home tonight and I start sniffling during the recap like every 30 seconds, I'm going to be mad at you. So, Justin, don't worry. I am okay. At least so far. We'll see. It's still kind of, well, early for me, probably late for most everybody else. Anyway, let's see. Space Antelope. Kirk Cousins, only 32 points. Tough matchup for him at Seattle. But like I said, he came through when it mattered the most there with that touchdown drive at the very end of the game. Said if he ended up with 31 points, like almost half of those points must have come at on that last drive there. T.Y. Hilton, the other boomer bust guy that Detling loves besides Deshaun Jackson here. And fortunately for you this week, it was boom. He had two long touchdowns, but only one of them was long enough to get you a bonus there, which I had to watch that play a couple times. He like dove around the defender, and the defender never touched him, so he got up and ran it the other 30 or 40 yards for a touchdown there, kind of a fluky play. But you'll take it. He got you 37.5. So Doug Baldwin got the touchdown at the end of that game to what I guess probably what Seattle thought was a game-winning touchdown there. Actually, pretty good totals there for the rest of the game for Baldwin. He got you almost 24, and then Jordy Nelson continuing to suffer from the play of Hundley at quarterback there in Green Bay. Only 7.5 points. So we'll see if that might be, here in the upcoming playoffs, that might be your Achilles heel, Jordy Nelson there. I'll have to wait and see how that goes for you. Your running backs, Kenyon Drake, who you splurged on in free agency, and Mixon. Looks like Drake had just under 70 points rushing, no touchdowns. Half of his stats came from receiving there, which we had to chop off. You got 7 points from him. And then Mixon, looks like 30 yards and a touchdown. So 9 points from him. Your tight end, Safarian Jenkins, only 4. And then you flexed your other tight end, Evan Engram. Looks like he's going to be a pretty good play every week as the Giants have very little receiving options there. He's been getting a pretty steadily fed targets every week here from Eli Manning. 17 points from him, pretty good there. Your kicker, Justin Tucker, looks like a couple field goals, a couple PATs. Yahoo says 9. And then your defense this week was Baltimore, trying to capture the magic that you lost out on last week, perhaps. But they lost the game. Looks like they had a couple sacks and a turnover. Didn't do too bad. Yahoo says 9. It might have been just a little bit more than that, or right around there. But it was enough to get past Mighty Midgets, who, let's see, he has now Cam Newton and Devin Funchess going together each week here. Newton actually only a little bit more than Kirk Cousins, about 34.5. Funchess, 13.5. Your other wide receivers, Robbie Anderson and, let's see, I gotta check and see which Brown there's 2 Jay Browns on the Arizona Cardinals receivers there, but you have Jaron Brown, not John Brown. Jaron Brown, let's see, he had 1 catch, but it was a 3-yard touchdown, so 7.5 points there. And Robbie Anderson, 14.5 points. He had a touchdown too. Your running backs, Abdullah and Derrick Henry. Looks like Abdullah had a touchdown. He lost a fumble, though, too. I think his score was 8.8, if I remember correctly. Let's see. And then Derrick Henry, he had a touchdown as well, but only 25 rushing yards. So that gets you about 8.5. Tight end, one of the better weeks of the season for this guy, Jared Cook. Let's see. He actually had 20.5. Then in the flex spot, Alvin Kamara, all the way up. He was actually over 30 this week, as he had a touchdown. He had receiving stats all over the place. 84 receiving yards, 68 rushing yards. Not sure what his catch total was there. That's the only stat not listed here on Yahoo there, but it said 12 and 20. So he must have had at least 6 or 7 catches there. So just over 31 points from him. Kicker was Bryant from Atlanta. Looks like he had a field goal, a 50-yard field goal, and a couple PATs. But then, so another difference here. I won't say 18 points is a close matchup, but it definitely was winnable if a couple of different things had gone differently for Mighty Midgets. Let's see. I think he had the Buffalo Bills defense going against the New York Jets, which I think Buffalo has been pretty consistently good all year long, but not this week when you needed them most. I think, let's see, they had 1 sack, so I think they were actually at -2 for most of the time. Excuse me. As I was figuring out your score here, and I think, so you were at -2. I think you ended up with 4 because they only had, I think you got 6 points for the rushing total. So they were somewhere between 50 and 100 there from the Jets running backs. So that bumped you back up from a negative total to 4 there. But it was not enough, as Space Antelope gets the win. Like I said, he is in 4th place now at 6-3. And Mighty Midgets, I don't know if the guys are going to clap you out this week, but I think it's pretty safe to do, as you are now 2-7 and in 12th place. And the final matchup was Hillbillies on PCP versus Disco. And Disco was not very pleased with his team's performance going into after Sunday. And I think he was a little bit lowballing his point total at one point there on the line app, but he actually wasn't off by too much. But you made up for a little bit there, I think, on Sunday night and Monday night there, to make this one not quite as embarrassing, but still it was a tough one here, as Hillbillies on PCP gets the win. The final score, 186.55 to 113.45. And as you probably already know, Hillbillies on PCP, he lost Deshaun Watson last week, who was going to be his filler. Well, it's going to be his filler after draft day, but was his starter now because he had been crazy, bonkers, playing out of his mind the last couple weeks. But as you know, he went down in practice with a torn ACL, and also this week you had Roethlisberger and Rivers as your other 2 quarterbacks, and they were both on a bye week. So that's why Deshaun Watson was going to be filler, but so you actually were without a quarterback for a brief moment there, and you plugged and played Jay Cutler, which turned out to be solid gold. I hate to admit this, and Brian will probably, I'm sure we'll hear about it a couple times in the podcast, but for the most part this year, everything Brian has touched has turned to gold. Just everything's gone his way for the most part here. Not as much as Josh here so far, but said the one week where you needed a quarterback and you pick up and plug someone in and he scores 65. Then let's see. Your wide receivers, Demaryius Thomas Devontae Parker and even Jeremy Macklin picked up off the scrap heap from, again, FC Bohoric. Thomas, 21 points. He was the only bright spot for the Denver Broncos in that game. Devontae Parker, 12.5. And like I said, actually Macklin got you 17.5, almost 18. Your running backs, McCoy, actually had a pretty quiet game this week for a change. Only 2.5 points. And then Bilal Powell, you played him again, and he got you actually 7.5, so not too bad. But still, I'm still bitter, as you know, about Bilal Powell, because the only time this whole season that he's even reached double digits in fantasy points, mostly from receiving stats. I'm taking a quick look at his game log. So, yeah, the only time Bilal Powell has gone over 10, or maybe even say 8 or 9, is the week that he was the difference maker with a long touchdown. I think he might have had 2 touchdowns that week against me. So I will be mad about that for a long time to come. Bilal Powell. Anyway, Jack Doyle, your tight end. Let's see, 14.5 points. McCaffrey, your every week flex, has been consistently pretty good. Looks like he had a touchdown this week. 20.5 points. Kicker was Lutz from New Orleans, 5 points. And then you had the Detroit defense on Monday night. They did pretty well. Yahoo says 12. I believe it was actually closer to 20 or 21. But not enough for Disco, who I think said his team had about, after the Sunday games, about 24 points, something like that. And I was like, that's got to be an exaggeration. It can't be that low. But it actually was right around there going into Sunday night. Thanks to, but you still had a lot of players left to go. But you had already had, Michael Thomas, Carlos Hyde, Marlon Mack, O.J. Howard, your kicker, and your defense. And you were right around 30 points total from all of those guys combined. But Stafford did okay there. He got you 55, made up for it maybe. So Michael Thomas, 14.5. But then Sunday night you had Amari Cooper and Jarvis Landry. They got you 10 and 15, respectively. Carlos Hyde, looks like most of his stats came from receiving. So we actually chopped off 17.5 points from your total there. He only got you 4. Marlon Mack got you 3. O.J. Howard actually got you negative points thanks to a fumble lost. And then you had Theo Riddick in the flex. So Stafford to Riddick a couple times there. And he got you 11.5 points. Your kicker was Nugent from Dallas. Only no field goals, just some PATs there for him. So 4. And the other defense this year, I didn't think we would have this. It would be repeated this year. So maybe it's happened a few more times in the past than I thought it did, because this makes 2 times this year. The New York Giants defense, 0. Actually, I'm sorry, -3, because they lost the game. They got you no sacks. They got you no turnovers. They gave up 50 points. They gave up too many yards rushing, too many yards passing, too many everything, and they got you. They got you -3. So Brandon, you join Detling on the wall of shame for the defensive wall of shame there with a -3 score. So you had 2 of your players get you negative points this week, but you still did better than New Gods Mad Titans. Was what I wanted to say. And you did better than your old buddy Kevin Bean. You had 2 players scored negative points, but you still did better than Jimmy and Kevin. So there's something to hang your hat on. But yeah, I think so. All of those 4-4 teams must have lost this week, because I see Disco. He's now 4-5. He's in 7th place. So you can't feel too bad right now. The weeks ahead, who knows what they will hold for you. They're Disco, but you're in 7th place. You're right on the outside looking into the playoffs, so you can't feel too bad right now. Excuse me. Again, depends on your matchups here, and these last couple weeks are going to be important for you and most everybody else. But said Hillbillies on Disco, Hillbillies on PCP. You're 7-2, and you are in 7th place. 2nd place. I'm just excited to finish talking here. I said Hillbillies on PCP. He gets win number 7, so he is virtually a lock for a playoff spot here. So those are all the matchups, and like I said, let's see, 55 minutes already? I don't understand how the time goes by so fast when I'm just sitting here talking about a couple, just running through the lineups, but it's because I stop and take these drink breaks, these 5-second drink breaks every half an hour. Let's see. So I wanted to just do a quick discussion about the standings here in this week coming up. So week 10 is going to be another really big week and the standings actually play out really nicely in terms of figuring things out here. Because if you look at the standings here now, like I said, we've got Shawshank, Hillbillies, FC Bohoric, and Space Antelope. We can pretty much pencil those guys in for the first, well, maybe not the first 4, but 4 of the 6 playoff spots, as FC and Space Antelope really just need to win 1 out of the next 4 weeks to probably clinch a spot there. Their point totals are both pretty good. But then, every 4-4 team lost. And those 2-6 teams that needed to win, two of them actually won as well. And friggin' Laser Sharks needed to win last week to jump up to, let's see, he would have been, well, he needed to get back to 4-5, but he lost, so he's down to 3. He joins the Isotopes and Gags to Riches at 3-6. So, like I said, Bad Luck Bears is 4-5, but he is in 5th place. So there's only 1 game separating 5th place from 11th place right now. A huge swing of potential standings shuffling here coming up next week. And what makes it so great here in week 10 is that all of the matchups, none of those teams are playing each other. That I think I said this on the lineup this morning. It's extremely unlikely, but we could end up with 7 teams being 4-6 after this week. 7. I think one of the matchups has to be, guys. Yeah, I see it's Kevin Bean again here this week. But anyway, that said teams that are either 4-5 or 3-6. And let's take a quick look at the matchups. First one is the Isotopes. They're going against Shawshank, so they could potentially move up to 4-6. New Gods Mad Titans, one of those teams, he could drop to 4-6. He's got Mighty Midgets though. Hopefully Mighty Midgets can. So talked about him playing spoiler. Maybe he can sneak out a win this week. And then let's see, Bad Luck Bears and Laser Sharks. Said if the Laser Sharks could win this one, they would be 4-6, and they would drop the Bears to 4-6. And then Disco versus FC Bohoric. If Disco could get this win, well, if Disco loses, he could be 4-6. He's got a tough matchup against FC Bohoric. Let's see. Then Space Antelope versus Gags to Riches. If Gags to Riches can win over Detling there, he would be 4-6. And then if Possum Magic versus Hillbillies on PCP, which right now on Yahoo is it's a 70-point projection for Hillbillies on PCP, that would drop Possum Magic to 4-6. So we could potentially have Possum, Gags, Disco, Bad Luck Bears, Laser Sharks, New Gods, Mad Titans, and Skeletor Isotopes. Potentially, all of those teams could, going into Week 11, be 4-6. I think I said to Justin today, said my team could it's possible that we could jump all the way up to 5th place this week from being at the bottom all year long, basically, could actually jump up to a possible playoff positioning after this week. But like I said, it's highly unlikely. But anything is possible. There, said New Gods, Mad Titans. He's gonna have to get upset by Mighty Midgets. Mighty Midgets, not a bad team. Had a lot of misfortune this year. So I'm not going to just say New Gods, Mad Titans will easily handle them, but the matchups, New Gods, Mad Titans, I think they definitely probably favor him. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Mighty Midgets. Said to knock him out there. Let's see. Not sure if Kevin has bye week problems or this week, but he's like a 25-point underdog here according to the projections there. So he's going to have a tough battle. I think he's going to, said he's not going to have Mike Evans this week because he's suspended. Let's see. So Disco, you got a tough matchup. It looks like you're projected to win right now. You got a tough matchup versus FC Bahorik. Gags, tough matchup, but you need to win that one to get to 4-6. Said all these 3-6 teams, you pretty much have to win you need to win every week for the rest of the year. And then it said Possum Magic, he's got a tough matchup. So the Isotopes have a tough matchup versus Shawshank. New Gods kind of think that things should go his way. Probably Bad Luck Bears, things might go his way. So Disco needs. That's basically what I want to see is all the teams go 4-6. Said which means Disco would have to lose, Gags would have to win, which he's got a tough matchup against Detling, and Possum has a tough matchup versus Hillbillies there. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see as the playoffs get closer. Of course, they get closer each and every week, and it's really muddled in the middle. So these next couple weeks are going to be fun to watch and see. So unfortunately, it looks like only 2 of those spots are left for the playoffs here. And like I said, we've got 7 people fighting for them. So only 2 of us are going to make it. It's going to be a dogfight, hopefully all the way down to week 13 and through week 13, the last week of the year. Said make sure you get your players in. Every point's probably going to count. And, you need to get those wins this time. I mean, it's always good to get a couple at the beginning of the year, and you can kind of cruise your way through the second half of the season if you can get 4 or 5 wins there in the first half of the season, and then kind of roll your way along. But the rest of us this year looks like it's going to be an uphill battle just to make it here. But I love the way the standings are going. It's going to be interesting to see. So this week will probably said it could potentially give the Isotopes, Laser Sharks, and Gags to Riches. Could give them all their 7th loss, which would give them put all of them in tough positions because, like I said, they would then be 2 games behind. Let's see, possibly New Gods, Bad Luck Bears, maybe Possum Magic. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna stop because you get the idea. You know how it is. I don't need to be sitting here and explaining it all to you. So that's gonna be. I'm excited to see what happens this week. A lot of good matchups and playoff ramifications on the line. Lots of bye weeks. So we'll see what happens. The people shuffling their lineups, making some plug and plays here. So it's going to be a great week, as most weeks tend to be in the league. So here we are, and 10 weeks into the season already. So we're winding down the regular season. So always goes way too fast. But anyway, all right, that's it for this week. Thanks, everybody. So we will see you back here again next week. All right, thank you if you made it this far. So, all right, thanks, and see you back here next week. Good luck to everybody, but especially me. Had to sneak that in, of course.